Everyone, it's Jack from Cultaholic, and it's time to talk about AEW Revolution 2021, a show full of thrills, spills, surprise debuts, carnage left, right and centre, an apparent heel turn, an apparent face turn, and of course it all ended with a... Well, it all ended... Yes, that's right, if you've seen the show you'll know exactly what I'm referring to, but we'll get to that in good time, because now it's time to talk about what happened at AEW Revolution 2021. Just the one pre-show or buy-in match to talk about the tag team match between Britt Baker and Rebel and the team of Thunder Rosa and Riho, but as they made their entrances, it became apparent that Rebel was injured, she's on crutches and everything to sell it, so Britt Baker's like, don't worry, I have a new mystery partner. And that partner is revealed to be none other than Maki Itoh, who was kind of the emerging fan favourite of the AEW Women's Tournament because of how funny she is on Twitter as much as anything she did in the ring. I mean, she went out in the first round, but everyone loved her personality, everybody loved her witticisms, shall we say, online, so it was nice to see her here. Itoh sings and dances her way down to the ring, and I, for one, am thoroughly sports entertained. But when Itoh tags into the match, she does flip the bird to everybody to remind us all that despite being so lovable and so entertaining, she is, of course, for the purposes of this match, a massive heel. And the match goes kind of as you'd expect, but Itoh's a real wild card in this one. Everything that happened that was noteworthy was kind of centered around her, from her incredibly late and feeble kickouts, which really made you think the match could end at any second, to her hilarious missed headbutts both standing and off the top rope as well at one point. She's certainly something. She's entertaining for what she is. But then at one point she really surprises me actually, because Riho goes for a running meteora across the ring and she reverses it with a very slick backward roll into a single leg sort of Boston Crab. It's almost like watching Lance Storm in his prime, except with singing and dancing and, you know, personality, I suppose. It all, of course, boils down to Britt Baker and Thunder Rosa, who are feuding at the moment, and Britt Baker manages to distract the referee and throw Thunder Rosa into the ropes, where Rebel is waiting on the apron with the crutch and nails a very nice crutch shot, actually. She kind of flips it upwards and nails Thunder Rosa in the face, and that leads to Britt Baker picking up the win. Now on to the first match of the main portion of the show, the Young Bucks defending their tag team titles against Chris Jericho and MJF. And the Bucks are not messing around in this one, they're straight into it with brawling and tackles and punches, because they're really angry at the heels because of course they beat up their dad, so it all kind of makes sense. I'm quite relieved they didn't start this one with a lockup or any sort of chain wrestling. The heels work their way back into it via cheating, of course. Wardlow's on the outside, he's getting involved a little bit here and there, but whenever the Bucks get the hot tag to each other, their hot tag sequences are kind of a bit less flippy than we're maybe used to from the Bucks, and a little bit more brawly, although later on Nick does, of course, get the flips in. But this match was a lot more bad-tempered than Young Bucks matches tend to be, and I think that worked here. Jericho keeps going for the walls of Jericho. Both Bucks escape from it at different times, but the heels are still very much in control. MJF becomes the legal man, and he tells Matt Jackson to suck it a lot of times. I'll say it, an excessive amount of times. Matt, of course, fires up because of this. He gets MJF in the tombstone position for the Melter driver, but Jericho cuts off Nick on the springboard with a flying codebreaker. So then Jericho goes for the bat, and behind the referee's back, he nails Matt with it. Matt then takes the heat seeker from MJF, but he kicks out a 2, a very close false finish there. But of course, Matt's really strong and kicks out of everything. I mean, I'm a big fan of Matt Jackson, but in some ways, he is a bit of the Johnny Gargano of AEW, if that makes sense. Wardlow gets on the apron, Jericho hits him by accident with an errant Judas effect back elbow, so Jericho goes for the lion salt, the Bucks nail him in midair with a double super kick, and they set him up for the BTE trigger. They nail it, but MJF breaks up the pinfall on the stroke of 3. And now everybody, get the drinks in, because it's time for a super kick party. They nail MJF with loads of super kicks, 2 for Jericho as well. They hit him with the Melter driver. 1, 2, 3, the Bucks retain, which I wasn't surprised by, but I was surprised by Jericho taking the pinfall, but it's a decision that I quite like, and we'll find out a little bit more later on in the show. This was a fun match to start off the show. A lot of false finishes, and if you're not a fan of false finishes to an excessive degree, that may have hindered your enjoyment slightly, but for the first match of the show, it was high energy, there was a lot going on, and I was quite a fan. Next up, the Casino Tag Team Battle Royale, which is structured more like a Royal Rumble really, with staggered entrants. I'm not going to go over every single elimination, especially because both members of a team had to be eliminated for them to be out of the match, but I'll go through the key moments. So the Natural Nightmares start things off with 5 and 10 from the Dark Order. They are joined by Santana and Ortiz and the Seidel brothers, then Grayson and Uno, who do have a little bit of teamwork going on with 5 and 10. So the Dark Order are kind of working together here. Who else do we have? We have the Gun Club, Austin and Colton Gunn. No Billy, sadly. Pretty Peter Avalon and Cesar Bononi. They clear house for a bit, and then we get my boys. They have elevated themselves to boy status for myself. The Varsity Blondes, Brian Pillman Jr. and Griff Garrison. I just love them. They're just so babyface to a rather ridiculous degree, and I'm all for that. The Gun Club then run wild. They hit a Faymaster and eliminate Peter Avalon. They look to eliminate Cesar Bononi. They get him against the ropes. But then QT Marshall sneaks up from behind and eliminates his boys, the Gun Club, who are also part of the Nightmare family. Really strange. Dustin Rhodes comes over. He's like, QT, what on earth are you doing? And QT's like, I've had enough of this. He vaults the top rope, eliminates himself, spits in Dustin's direction, and storms off to the back. Ooh, interesting developments there. We then get Bear Country. Nice to see them. They're primarily wrestlers on AEW Dark, but clearly there's big things in store. They look really impressive. And Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus, who run absolutely wild. They get rid of multiple people. Bononi, Garrison, both Santana and Ortiz as well. Marco Stunt gets involved. He helps eliminate Evil Uno by kind of Hurricane Rana-ing him off the apron, but Uno wants none of that flip bump to the outside and runs himself a good 2/3 of the way across the apron into the ring post and tumbles to the outside. A comical spot from a comical man. The Butcher and the Blade are in next. They start running wild. They're clearly one of the big danger teams in this match, and they're helped by Jack Evans as well, who comes out from under the ring and helps them eliminate number 10 of the Dark Order, thereby furthering the feud between the guys on Matt Hardy's payroll and the Dark Order. And speaking of guys on Matt Hardy's payroll, next up we have Private Party. We also have SCU, Kazarian and Daniels, of course. They're going to break up when they lose their next tag match, but it's made clear by Excalibur that this doesn't really count. It has to be a proper, tag team contest. Bear Country get a bit of a rub. They eliminate Luchasaurus, but the Butcher then eliminates both of them from behind. They drag him out the ring and beat him up a little bit. Nice featured spot there for Bear Country, and this was quite an impressive little showing for them. SCU backdrop the Butcher out a little bit later on. Then we get Phoenix and Pac, many people's favourites in this match. Then we get John Silver and Alex Reynolds of the Dark Order, many people's favourites in a different sense, as in we all love them dearly with all of our hearts. It all boils down to SCU, Silver and Reynolds, Pac and Phoenix, and then Jungle Boy just on his own. Phoenix does Phoenix things to get rid of Christopher Daniels. Jungle Boy gets rid of Alex Reynolds. Pac backdrops Kazarian to the outside, so we're down to the final four. And that final four is Pac, Phoenix, they've got the numbers advantage of course, John Silver and Jungle Boy. John Silver starts to run wild a little bit. He gets a few HBK hero spots, saving himself from elimination as well. He has a face-off with Pac. They start laying in shots to each other, but Pac manages to get Silver onto the apron. Phoenix charges in and takes him out. It's now down to the final three. Jungle Boy on his own against the two members of Death Triangle. But somehow Jungle Boy manages to fight against the odds and eliminate Pac from the match. It's down to him and Phoenix. Phoenix knocks him to the outside or avoids a missile dropkick attempt. Jungle Boy lands on the outside, but he's gone under the bottom rope. Phoenix takes him out with one of his insanely dangerous suicide dives, but he goes through the middle ropes, and the refs have to clarify that. They're like, no, he went through the middle, it's all good. So Phoenix gets back in the ring, Jungle Boy gets back in the ring, they have a really nice little battle, but ultimately it's Phoenix who wins the match for his team. This was really fun stuff. It built and built towards the end as well. So there were a few little storyline developments with the likes of QT, Bear Country getting a bit of a featured moment as well. But that final four onwards was really entertaining. Really makes me want to see a singles match between Phoenix and Jungle Boy, which we may get in the future, but I think it's the right call to have Phoenix and Pac win this one, and I'm sure they'll go on to have a really entertaining title match against the Young Bucks. Backstage we go now, where Paul White, aka, formerly known as The Big Show, has a little bit of a tease about the identity of the big major signing later on in the show. His clue is that it's someone who cannot be outworked. So I guess that means it's Kazuchika Okada. We can all go home now. It's Okada. Let's just It's not Okada, the forbidden door isn't quite that wide open yet. Next up, the AEW Women's title match with Hikaru Shida defending her belt against the winner of the tournament, Riho Mizunami. We get a really hard-hitting start to this match, with Riho lighting up Hikaru Shida with multiple chops in the corner. Then, she pulls out the rope a little bit, does a bit of miming, which I'm always a fan of. Shida gains control, they head to the outside, Shida gets her chair out, which she likes to use as a platform to do that big jumping knee off, but Riho just catches her and throws her into the front row, while Excalibur on commentary is doing a very admirable job of talking up the history of the two and their rival dojos back in Japan, which is something that I really think should have been explored more on weekly episodes of Dynamite. Maybe it was mentioned on this week's, I only skimmed this week's Dynamite, but judging by some people's tweets, this is something that could have been maybe told a little bit more fully in the build-up to this match. Shida takes control with a big air raid crash on the ramp, and then things start to get into kind of more Japanese formula territory, if that makes sense. They start no-selling moves and firing up, and it all gets a little bit epic. It looks like Mizunami has this one won at one stage when she hits a huge Uranagi, then a big spear, then heads up top and hits her signature leaping guillotine leg drop from the top rope, but Shida kicks out of her finisher. Now it's Shida's turn to start lighting up Riho Mizunami with her signature moves, lots of running knees, falcon arrows, that sort of thing, but Mizunami will not be put away. Again, lots of false finishes in this one. So then Shida pokes her in the eye and rolls her up for two, and I'm like, is that a heel turn? Are we gonna explore that further going ahead? But from this moment on, it seems to just be forgotten. It's just a spot in the match, which I find a little bit odd. We get a big slam from Shida, which may have been supposed to be the finish, but Mizunami survives. So Shida hits a big running knee, 1-2. Mizunami kicks out again, so then Shida hits like a kick slash enziguri to the side of Mizunami's head and pins her and retains the title. Again, this was a good match. This was probably the best wrestling match of the show so far, but at the same time, I feel like maybe it went a minute or two over the limit of where it should have been. They could have cut some of the near falls out of this one potentially, but it was still very good stuff between two very skilled wrestlers. But it's not over yet, because here comes Nyla Rose with Vicky Guerrero. She attacks Shida from behind, then she starts attacking Mizunami. Shida kind of saves Mizunami despite having poked her in the eye before, which does irritate me slightly. And then here comes Britt Baker and Maki Itoh to join in the beatdown. But the day is saved as music hits, and here comes Thunder Rosa to chase off all of the heels. They're terrified of her. There's 3 of you, 5 if you count Rebel and Vicky Guerrero, but certainly 3 active competitors who could surely have helped batter those damn baby faces, but no, they just run away. Next up, my boy, Alex Marvez is backstage doing his job as per usual, and he's got an interview with Chuck Taylor and Orange Cassidy. But before the interview can even get underway, here comes Miro and Kip Sabian to start the match early, before they've even made it to the ring. Miro grabs Chuck Taylor's head, puts it through a window, Chuck is bleeding everywhere. Orange Cassidy gets slammed by Sabian onto like a crate, he's down and out, and they drag Chuck Taylor down to the ring. Miro then gets on the mic and tries to force Chuck Taylor to pledge allegiance to him, and Chuck instead leans into the mic and all beaten and bloodied and heroic says, "Ring the damn bell." Yes. So of course the two of them absolutely destroy Chuck Taylor, and at one stage he comes back a little bit, then they regain control and he's crawling towards his corner, but Orange Cassidy is not there. But here he comes, limping onto the stage. He's down and out on the stage, he can't get to the ring, it all looks bad for the good guys. So then Miro goes over to try and take out Orange Cassidy while he's lying on the stage, but Cassidy nips up and leaps down the steps of the ramp with a big orange punch onto Miro. Awesome moment. And the faces have a big head of steam. Miro's out of there. It's just 2-on-1 against Kip Sabian. They get a few near falls here and there, but just in the nick of time to save the day, Miro makes it back into the match and tags in, and we get a big showdown between Miro and Orange Cassidy. And Orange doesn't care. He does his little kicks. He's still joking around, but no, he's not, because he snaps into it and starts hitting his big signature offense. Penelope Ford on the outside senses that Miro's in trouble. He takes an orange punch. He's wobbling. He's not quite down yet, but he's about to be. So Penelope gets on the apron, distracts Orange Cassidy, and Miro shoves him into her, and she takes a great looking bump off the apron to the guardrail, and Kip Sabian's all like, oh my god, no, and it looks really good. Miro doesn't care. He turns away from her. He wants to finish the match and walks right into a roll-up from Chuck Taylor for 2, and then gets up full of vengeance, kick to the side of Chuck Taylor's head, game over, camel clutch locked in, and Chuck is forced to tap out. This was a good match. I like the setup of it with the ambush before the bell and everything. It really set it apart from other things on the card. And also, I really enjoyed Miro's development. This could be the start of him descending into a darker place, which we've all been waiting for so long. My boy, Marvez, is backstage with the Inner Circle, and he wants to talk to Jericho and MJF about their losses tonight. Santana and Ortiz lost in the Tag Team Battle Royal, and then of course Jericho and MJF lost in that opening Tag Team title match. And Jericho says, right, look Marvez, I hate you, but you're right, we do need to address some things, and that's why this week we're going to have the Inner Circle War Council on Dynamite, and I think some changes need to be made. And then MJF says, I agree Chris, some changes do need to be made, and they fist bump, but Jericho's in trouble. Next up, it's Hangman Page, it's Matt Hardy, it's time for the big money match. The winner, of course, receives all of the first quarter earnings, that was a bit of a tongue twister, first quarter earnings from their opponent. They get loads of money off them, basically. It's all Hangman to start this one off. He's running wild on Matt Hardy, inside the ring, outside the ring, but he misses a forearm and hits the ring post, and Matt takes full advantage, working that hand and that forearm, trying to stop Hangman from using the buckshot lariat later in the match. He even crushes it with the ring steps at one stage, so it's looking pretty bad for Hangman Page. Matt Hardy dominates for a while. He even hits the Twist of Fate on the outside, but Hangman just beats the count out at the count of 9, and then manages to fight back with left hands and headbutts. Occasionally he'll hit a right hand and sell it, but generally he's working his way back into the match. He hits the Deadeye. It looks like he might have the match won, but then Private Party distract the referee. But Hangman isn't phased. He takes out Private Party, but crucially, it's given Matt time to recover. Side effect, Twist of Fate, Hangman kicks out in the nick of time. Private Party get ready to attack Hangman again, but here comes all of the Dark Order down to the ring to fend them off, and they just start beating them down on the outside. It's quite funny because there's like 6 Dark Order members on one Private Party member, and it's just, Private Party have not played the numbers game well here. Hangman gets knocked off the apron, but the Dark Order catch him and like crowd surf him back onto the apron. He nails the buckshot lariat, pins Matt Hardy 1, 2, 3, and wins all of the money. It's good for him. There's a big celebration afterwards. Hangman's hugging out with the Dark Order. Cole Cabana's got the beers in. And I enjoyed the match for what it was, but I do feel like maybe they should have had Hangman win in a different way that didn't involve using the buckshot lariat, because his arm was so beaten up towards the start of the match. In fact, he could have maybe sold it a little bit more as the match went on too. So that was a downside of the match, but generally I found it pretty entertaining. Next up, we get the face of the Revolution ladder match, which is to become #1 contender for Darby Allin's TNT title. There's a big brass ring hung above the ring. That's going to be the belt or the briefcase equivalent in this match. And a lot of people on Twitter compared it to the Sonic rings from that franchise. Now, I wasn't really a Sonic kid. I was more like Mario, like Nintendo rather than Sega, but I appreciate it and I do understand. Tom Campbell's your man when it comes to all things Sonic, of course. But anyway, the competitors in this match are Cody Rhodes, Scorpio Sky, Penta, Lance Archer, Max Caster, and a mystery entrant. Some of Caster's bars as he raps his way to the ring include, I make Tony Khan money, I flatten these guys' chests like Lola Bunny, because Space Jam 2 and they made Lola Bunny less sexualized and stuff. It's all very topical. I've got this juice, I cancel these boys like Dr. Seuss. And one about Governor Cuomo, who's the governor of New York. Apparently he's responsible for quite a lot of nursing home, I mean allegedly, I'm not going to get into it. I'm not too clued up on the governor of New York, but I'm sure that Americans out there will understand what that was a reference to. Cody's wearing special red and white attire. Good to see him repping Sunderland AFC after our 2-0 win over Rochdale this weekend. Lovely stuff from Cody there. And the mystery entrant is All Ego Ethan Page, fresh off his big finish and transferring across from Impact Wrestling. Max Caster is on top at the start of this one. He then calls Jack Evans down to the ring to bring his boombox, but he gets cut off by 10 of the Dark Order, who flattens Evans with a spinebuster on the stage. Again, continuing the feud between the Dark Order and the guys on Matt Hardy's payroll. I've already been through that, you know what I mean. The first massive spot of the match comes when Penta hits an insane Canadian Destroyer from inside the ring to the outside on Cody through a ladder bridge, and Cody's shoulder is busted. He can't continue. He gets escorted out. Now, usually when this happens, they take them backstage and then they make a big heroic return. Cody spent most of the match from this point selling within view of the hard cam down one of the entrance tunnels and like talking to the doctors and trying to get back out there and being held back by Arn. I don't know whether that added to the match or took away from it, because on one hand, it keeps it in your mind, but on the other hand, you know that none of the false finishes are going to actually be the finish while Cody's still on screen. We get, of course, a lot of big ladder match moments. Scorpio Sky with a huge frog splash to Max Caster, who's lying on a ladder in the ring. Scorpio Sky then taking a big jumping knee from Lance Archer, sending him through a ladder bridge on the outside. Lots of destruction and that sort of thing. It looks at one stage like Archer is about to win because he's dominated everybody, but he forgets about Ethan Page, who hits him with a low blow as he climbs. At one stage as well, Ethan Page seems to be about to win, but here comes Cody fighting his way back finally into the match with his weight belt, whips Page from behind, nails him with a crossroads, but of course that hurts his shoulder even more. He then takes some big moves, a big superplex from Lance Archer, a huge elbow drop as well from Max Caster from the top of a ladder. Then Archer takes out everybody, but then Ethan Page hits him with a very impressive Razor's Edge type move. A lot of strength there from Ethan Page. Jay the Snake Roberts is having none of that. He's in, short arm clothesline to Ethan Page. He takes a huge bump for Jake. Then Penta's in, super kick to Jake. Oh man, you want to have one of the heels hit Jake with a move, surely. We're then down to Cody, Sky and Penta. Cody goes to climb, Penta hits him in the shoulder with a steel chair. Cody falls down, Penta climbs, Scorpio Sky stops him, and it ends up being Sky and Cody on opposite sides of the ladder fighting over that brass ring above. And then we get the winner of the match, Scorpio Sky taking Cody's injured shoulder and mercilessly slamming his arm into the top of the ladder, punching the injured shoulder. Cody falls down. Scorpio Sky has shown a real mean streak, and he pulls down the brass ring, and he is the face of the Revolution, following up on his heelish behaviour on commentary midweek. I quite enjoy this. It's a new direction for Scorpio Sky, and I'm intrigued to see where it goes, but I'd be very surprised if he actually beat Darby Allin. Now it's time to reveal the mystery signing, and I mean, there's a lot of build-up for it, and it's revealed to be Christian Cage. He heads out to the ring, signs the contract, poses, does the thing that he does, and then heads off. It felt a little bit anticlimactic. I saw a lot of people on Twitter saying, I'm not too big a fan of this. To be honest, I think if a lot of us hadn't speculated that it would be Christian in the build-up to this, it was between like Christian and Kurt Angle, wasn't it? And if a lot of people hadn't been speculating that it may have been Christian, this would probably have felt a lot bigger. I did see some people suggesting this should have been just totally unannounced, which I do think I agree with. That probably would have been a bit more effective, but it's great to see Christian, and I'm excited to see what he does. His slogan also appears to be outwork everyone. It was on his Tron, it was on his t-shirt as well, so it sounds like he's going to be doing some work rate matches by the sounds of it, but we'll have to see what happens in the future. Next up, cinematic time. It's the street fight in an undisclosed location. It's Brian Cage and Ricky Starks teaming up against Darby Allin and Sting. Taz is on commentary for this one. They make the curious decision of having this very cinematic match with lots of camera cuts and stuff with live commentary over the top of it, which was a bit of a stylistic clash in my opinion, but it was still shot really well. It's probably one of the best shot cinematic matches I've seen since their inception. The heels turn up in a sports car. They get to the warehouse. It looks like the same place that Darby and Sting shot that video where they said, "We are hoodlums." Darby's skateboarding his way to the venue. It's like the start of Back to the Future. He skitches on Sting's pickup truck. He absolutely sends it down a hill as well to pick up some speed. They arrive, they get in there. They're met by a little army of druids with Sting masks on, and they walk into the warehouse. There's a ring in there, and it's nearly go time. The ref gets in the ring and we're away, and we get some early parkour. Cage slings Darby Allin into the wall next to the ring, and he kind of sticks to it, almost like a sort of spider-themed superhero, and then jumps back trying for a coffin drop onto Brian Cage, but he catches him and nails a German suplex. We're off to a big start. Cage takes out the druid figures outside of the ring with a tire and then throws Darby through a door marked not an exit. So where are they going to end up? It turns out that just leads to the stairs for the top level of the venue. While this is going on, Sting and Starks face off around the ring sort of area on the main level. Sting's got his bat. Starks says, "You're nothing without that bat," so Sting throws it away up to the top level, so that could be important later on. Chekhov's baseball bat in effect. Everyone then battles up to the second floor. We get a lot of weapons-based anarchy. We get a fire extinguisher from Sting into the face of Brian Cage. Darby smashes a beer bottle over Cage's head. They put him through a table. It's all WWE style hardcore stuff, but in this cinematic environment. Starks is now in trouble. He does not have the numbers advantage, but here comes Powerhouse Hobbs and Hook. They've made it to the warehouse and they turn the tide in the favor of the heels. Brian Cage recovers from the beating as well, and he and Starks pick up Darby and sling him through just a pane of glass leaning against the wall. That might have been my favorite spot of the whole thing. They all head back down to the main floor where the ring is, and Sting's in trouble, but then Darby recovers, and from the top floor he throws that baseball bat down to Sting, who catches it and uses it to fend off Team Taz and breaks it over Brian Cage's back. And then we get the big signature spot of the match. Brian Cage ends up lying on, I'll try and describe this. So there's like a hole in the floor of this main floor of the warehouse, right? It leads down to presumably a basement, we never see it, but there's a platform over it which Cage ends up lying on, and then Darby jumps from the top floor through with an elbow drop through the platform to the basement area. It feels like I'm describing the water temple. Sting takes himself out of the match, and Brian Cage as well. It all comes down to Starks and Sting in the ring. Sting's hitting his signature offense on Starks, goes for the Stinger Splash. Starks moves and rips away the turnbuckle pad, and Sting hits it, and he's in trouble. Starks nails Sting with a spear, 1-2, Sting kicks out, he clings on and hits the Scorpion Death Drop, 1-2-3, and Darby Allin may be dead, he may have killed himself and Brian Cage, but we get the most important thing to end this match, a lovely close-up of Sting. He's won it. He's won it for his boys being himself and Darby, who may be dead. I mean, we don't know the status of Darby. Again, as I mentioned, this was really well shot. I enjoyed the production of it very much, but I don't know about the decision to have the live commentary over the top. It didn't ruin it or anything. I think generally this is a thumbs up from me, but yeah, the live commentary was a bit of a weird decision. And finally, the main event of the night, Jon Moxley taking on Kenny Omega for the latter's AEW World Championship in, of course, an exploding barbed wire death match. So the rules for this one, there's 3 sides of the ring which are covered in barbed wire on the ropes. One side of the ring, the one opposite the hard cam next to the ramp, that's fine, that's clear of barbed wire. Around the ring, we've got like boards with barbed wire on and explosions underneath. If you touch the ropes, if you get whipped into one of the barbed wire ropes, there's an explosion as well. Lots of explosions, lots of blood. It's what you'd expect. Moxley makes his entrance from the top of the arena all the way down through the stands. He's wearing an Onita-inspired jacket, of course, in tribute to this stipulation and the innovator of this stipulation. It's really cool. He's even got a flask of presumably like whiskey, which he takes a sip from too. Awesome stuff. Less awesome, Bryce Remsburg is in a full bomb suit in the ring, ready to become a meme. Just ready and willing to become... God bless you, Bryce Remsburg. Omega comes out, Callis joins commentary. We are away. Commentary mentioned that. One of the rules I forgot to mention, actually, is that there is a 30-minute countdown, and when it finally hits 0, the ring's going to explode. And we start things off quite slow-paced. Both men do a lot of teasers of whipping each other into the barbed wire ropes, making us really wait for it, building the suspense, which is a wise decision, and generally hating each other a lot in the process. Moxley gets a trash can full of weapons, brings that into the ring, but Omega's waiting for him and throws a handful of powder into his face and then whips him into the ropes, and we get our first explosion. It's quite satisfying. Omega then starts to take Moxley apart with weapons and busts him wide open and puts on a figure 4 leg lock, but Moxley gets a nearby barbed wire chair and rakes it across Omega's legs to break the submission. So Omega goes for another figure 4, Moxley kicks him into the ropes, another explosion, he rebounds, drop kick from Moxley, sends Omega back into the ropes again, the same side, another explosion. They've got 2 on the same side, guys. We then get a sequence where Moxley wraps a snippet of barbed wire around his own arm, looking for a lariat. Omega avoids it, Snapdragons, V-triggers, but Moxley eventually gets it. They're both really evenly matched. They run each other into the ropes and they explode and they both fall into the ring. Omega's blinded, he can't see. He calls for some water and pours it into his own eyes. The intensity is ramping up. They battle to the apron. Moxley hits a paradigm shift off the apron onto one of the boards on the outside. They land. There's a bit of an explosion that goes off there, but the more terrifying thing is how Omega nearly lands on the top of his head. He just flips onto his back in time, but it's really scary. Back in the ring now, and we get a noise, which I first thought was Goldberg's theme. I was really scared, but it's not. It's just a noise that means there's about 10 minutes left to go until the explosion. So Moxley tries to end it quickly. Pile driver, Omega kicks out, low blow to Moxley, V-triggers, one-winged angel, nobody kicks out of that. It's surely over. 1, 2... In my favourite bit of the match now, Moxley gets his foot on the ropes, setting off an explosion, hurting himself, but also throwing Omega off the pinfall attempt. That was really creative. I really enjoyed that moment. I also like how they're still saving the kick out. Like, he broke it with a rope break, but they're saving the kick out for someone else. I don't know who it could be. Hangman Page. They're saving it for Hangman Page. Please God, let it be Hangman Page who kicks out of the one-winged angel. Moxley is back in control now, so here come the Good Brothers, Gallows and Anderson down to the ring. He beats them up, but they slip Kenny Omega a barbed wire baseball bat, which he hits Moxley with, and it explodes. There's explosions in the barbed wire baseball bat, guys. One-winged angel follows onto a steel chair. Moxley's in the middle of the ring. There's nowhere to go. 1, 2, 3. And Kenny Omega wins and retains the AEW World Championship. But the night is not over yet. Omega and the Good Brothers beat down Jon Moxley, handcuff him, and leave him in the middle of the ring. The countdown appears on the screen. They're going to leave him in the ring to blow up, guys. Omega and the Good Brothers get on the ramp. Omega does a big bad guy cackle. He's like, ha ha ha, and then leaves. Moxley's there. There's nowhere to go. The countdown's on 10, 9, 8. Eddie Kingston runs down to the ring, fighting off referees. He gets in the ring, shields Moxley from the impending explosion. It hits 0. I'm sure you've seen on Twitter by now what happens. As the countdown hits 0 and Kingston and Moxley are lying in the ring, Kingston protecting his old friend, babyface turn if I've ever seen one, sparklers go off and there's a mild explosion and they have to sell it like death, and I feel bad for people who set this up because they tried their best and it was an awesome effort from Moxley and Omega and Kingston as well at the end. Oh man. It's quite funny though. And that's how the show ends, with Kingston and Moxley selling this very weak explosion like death. And then they sign off, and that's it. Now, look, the storytelling there is great. On paper, it didn't work in execution, but they might save it yet. I saw some people on Twitter saying to me that basically this was all a ruse by Kenny. It's a gotcha moment. Haha, it was just a weak little explosion. The way the commentary sold it, I don't think that was the aim. But they can play it off like that if they want to. Also, footage has since emerged of Moxley cutting a promo afterwards on like a fan camera, basically saying, yeah, Omega may have won, but he can't build an exploding ring worth of crap. And I'm like, yes, that might be a way to do it as well. So there's ways out of this, but I'm afraid this moment probably is going to live on in infamy as like an all-time comedic, unintentionally comedic wrestling moment. And that's how the show goes off the air. A good show generally as well, but man, no one's going to forget that ending, unfortunately. It's all about how they recover from here. Generally though, as I say, I did enjoy the show, but let me know what you thought in that comment section down below. Thanks very much for watching. I've been Jack from Cultaholic, and make sure you stay safe out there, stay positive, and I'll see you very soon.